This is not a coaching channel. There's an oversaturation of manifestation channels, and it's become incredibly difficult to navigate all the conflicting information. I want to give you all real-world examples of how the law of assumption and manifestation applies. I will be telling real people's stories, many of whom you may be familiar with, and some of whom you may not. I will try my absolute best to remain respectful of their lives and not post anything insensitive. Although many of us may recognize the power of the law of assumption holds in our daily lives, I by no means intend on blaming or criticizing anyone for their current life circumstances or anything that has happened to them. I am merely trying to show recurring patterns, both positive and negative, through the lens of the law of assumption. All that being said, enjoy the video. My SB and I had been friends for a couple years first. We were really close friends, and there was definitely chemistry, but neither of us made a move because I was in a relationship at the time. Eventually, the relationship ended, and I hooked up with my SP. Things were fine post-hookup for about a week or two until SP started becoming cold towards me, not messaging me back, dismissing me in group settings, and basically ignoring me altogether out of nowhere. I was becoming desperate to fix things between us, even though I had no idea why he was suddenly acting this way. And this is actually how I manifested an apology on an accident, though definitely not what I was hoping to hear. SB basically told me that he was mentally unstable and that sleeping with me had ruined his perception of me, and that he felt incredibly confused about his own emotions. He requested we take a break from interacting altogether. I was devastated, but agreed. A few days later, despite me not reaching out at all, SB blocked me on every platform and all of our mutual friends. For a couple of days, nobody could reach him, until he told one person in the group that he was fine and to not reach out to him. I was distraught and desperate to try anything to fix things between us at this point. This is how I found Neville Goddard a week later. I instantly began applying his teachings after reading a few books. It took 2 weeks of SATs, affirmations, and dropping the old story. I had absolutely no contact with SP during this time, and neither did our mutual friends. Nobody had a clue what was going on with SP. Zero movement, or so I thought. Suddenly, he reached out to a mutual friend again, and the next day he requested that friend gave him my information again. We got to talking again that night, and it was as though he never left. He came back completely out of nowhere. I want to stress that I didn't react to the 3D during this period of time. I didn't go out of my way to stalk SP online or ask others about him. I ignored the 3D completely and dropped the old story. I focused on my own life as much as I could while still doing the techniques when I could or I wanted to. SP literally fell into my lap. We have officially been dating for just under a year now. SP and I were together for a short amount of time, and we fell extraordinarily hard for each other very quickly, became the love of each other's lives, and soulmates straight away. Unfortunately, I was at my lowest point self-concept-wise, as he traveled a lot for work and is a very good-looking guy, with many females interested in him. So during this time, along with having some personal things changing in my life, I manifested a pretty messy breakup. I then acted out of anger, I do not recommend, and I ended up being blocked. Things were a mess. I was devastated and heartbroken. From then on, I worked hard on my self-concept, with so much successes right away, with so many guys messaging me and asking me out. The new year was approaching, and I decided I didn't want to go into the new year with this horrible situation and feeling with my SP. And during this time, he had unblocked me. So I reached out, apologizing, and asked him to meet up. He replied thanking me for my apology and agreed to meet up. We met up and immediately felt the connection again, and things picked right back up. We got back together and everything was perfect. Now I have a new SP, but I just wanted to share that story that seemed absolutely impossible during the worst time in my life. Now I know I can truly manifest anything. I hope this helps someone whose situation seems hopeless. It took about 2 to 3 weeks for me. This person was very adamant on going no contact and telling me to move on. In fact, they were angry with me right before no contact started. I was heartbroken and tried to manifest them back. That was my first mistake, as I was still very emotional about the whole situation. After maybe 3 to 4 weeks of trying, I gave up and worked on myself, which I'm very glad I did, because I wasn't very knowledgeable about the law and kept reacting to the 3D. It was really unhealthy. The seed was planted, but I saw no progress because of the continuous reacting and being all over the place. I was in a huge state of lack. By working on myself, I completely detached from my desire. I got to the point where I didn't care if they came back or not. My state changed quickly as I had very supportive friends and started to heal and see my worth. As I was continuing with working on my self-concept, they started to change. Texting frequently, upset when I talked about others, then confessions, and begging for me back. Complete 180. What I think attributed to how quickly this manifested was quick change in dominant state and thoughts, completely letting go and having a better self-concept. Completely letting go isn't required, just don't be obsessing over results. Know that no matter what occurred in the 3D, they can come back. Back in March, I was in a very uncomfortable living situation, and after a string of undesirable living situations, I decided it was time for me to find my own apartment. I made my list of qualifications, and not too long after, I found the perfect one for an affordable price. I filled out the application promptly after touring the apartment, and after a few days, the leasing agent told me that he decided to give the apartment to someone else. At first, I was frustrated. I felt all the feelings one would feel in this situation, but then I remembered the law and everything I had learned. I calmed myself, and for the next few weeks, affirmed to myself, it's my apartment. I'm so excited that I get to live in my dream apartment. I felt the satisfaction of this, and the confidence in knowing it was mine. I carried this for a few weeks. I also did this exercise that I believe made all the difference. I closed my eyes in my bedroom and ran my hands across the walls, feeling them as if they were the walls of my new apartment. I did this, and it felt so vivid and real. It gave me the feeling of completion, almost like this trance of confidence. After I did this, I couldn't explain it, but I just knew it was mine. After about 10 days, I checked Zillow, and lo and behold, the apartment was listed again. I automatically called the leasing agent, and he told me it was indeed available and that I am the priority in getting the apartment. And only a few days later, I moved into my dream apartment. I literally just used my imagination and feelings, and everything came together for me. I didn't have to lift a finger. My mother has managed to sell the family house back in our home country at the exact price we jointly manifested, which was already a miracle as the real estate agents were mostly eager to sell it at a lower price. But she dreads that the title deed has ended up in the hands of a very mean in-law. No one has been able to contact that in-law ever since they harmed a now deceased member of my mother's family. Without the title deed showing that my mother is the sole owner of the house, she would have to pay hefty taxes and pay extra fees for reissuance of the title deed from the land office and wait for 9 months. But the house is going to be handed over to the new owner in 6 months. The delay and the fees are not acceptable given our schedule and budget. I told my mom to affirm for the perfect solution to this problem to materialize. Since childhood, I've had an intuitive grasp of the law before I read anything by Neville Goddard, and so I know we must let go of how the manifestation is going to take place. Since my mother is excellent at visualizing, she got to picture what the title deed looked like, which has a certain keyword on the cover, while I set the intention and forgot about it. Mom initially tasked a cousin of mine, who used to be a joint owner of the family house, to reach out to the in-law, but to no avail. A family friend she sought help from also couldn't contact the in-law. Worse still, the cousin's family became COVID positive shortly after my mom made her request, so they couldn't go anywhere to ask questions. But one of my mother's sisters informed her that she found a letter showing that the house ownership has been transferred to my mother, and my mother was indeed the sole owner. No more cousin's name. My mother implored my aunt to search further, and my aunt unearthed more documents. My mother sent the WhatsApp images of the documents my aunt discovered to the real estate agent responsible for closing the sale of the family house. The required title deed is indeed identified among the images, with the keyword she visualized. My mother was 100% sure the title deed was in a safe, which has now fallen in the hands of the mean in-law, and she only recovered the memories of having relocated the house's documents after the aunt discovered them. The other thing I noticed was in the old story, whenever my mother returned to our home country, she lived alone in the family house. But after Aunt unearthed the documents, Mom said that she had been living with her sisters, one of them being this aunt, and not always in the family house. It's as if the past timeline had changed accordingly, and so my aunt discovered the title deed we were seeking. Before this, I have read revision successes by others, but I have had many limiting beliefs to battle. Now I am seeing the glitch in the matrix. The past can be changed, circumstances do not matter.
Thank you guys for listening to this collection of success stories. Right now, I'm getting most of my stories from Reddit, but any of you guys would like to send me your success stories, I would be more than welcome to receive them. I'm kind of still working on my audio workup, so if the sound quality isn't that great, I know I'm working on it. For now, thank you, and there will be more coming soon.